The grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers, their light dancing across hundreds of expectant faces. Alexander stood at the altar in his perfectly tailored gray suit, his jaw tight with barely concealed anger. At 35, he had built his technology company from nothing into a billion-dollar empire. He was known for his sharp mind, his decisive nature, and his refusal to be manipulated. Yet here he stood about to marry a woman he had never seen, trapped by a promise made long ago. The music began, and every head turned toward the entrance. Alexander kept his eyes forward, his hands clenched at his sides. He refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing his desperation. This wedding was a business arrangement, nothing more. His late father had promised his best friend, Harold Whitmore, that their families would unite through marriage. When both men died within months of each other, that promise became a binding contract, one that threatened Alexander's entire inheritance if broken. The Whitmore family had insisted on traditional customs, including a veil that would remain in place until the ceremony concluded. Alexander suspected why. They were hiding something, trying to trap him before he could see what he was getting into. He had tried everything to escape this arrangement. His lawyers found no loopholes. The contract was ironclad, written decades ago when both families were struggling, meant to ensure mutual support and prosperity. Now it felt like a prison sentence. The footsteps grew closer. Alexander could feel her presence beside him now, could smell the faint scent of jasmine. He still refused to look. The officiant began the ceremony, his voice echoing through the silent ballroom. Alexander responded mechanically, his mind already planning how he would handle this disaster of a marriage. Separate residences, minimal contact, a quiet annulment after the required year stipulated in the contract. Do you, Alexander James Morrison, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, he said, the words tasting bitter. And do you, Catherine Grace Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Her voice was soft but steady, with a warmth that surprised him. You may now kiss the bride. This was the moment. The moment he would see what the Whitmore family had been hiding. Alexander finally turned to face his new wife. She stood perfectly still, the white lace veil covering her face completely. Through the delicate fabric, he could make out only the vague shape of features, the hint of blonde hair beneath the traditional covering. His hands trembled slightly with anger as he reached for the veil. Around them, the ballroom held its breath. He could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes, waiting, watching, judging. Alexander lifted the veil slowly, each inch revealing more. First, he saw her chin, delicate and slightly pointed. Then her lips, soft and naturally pink. Her nose, small and perfectly shaped. And finally, her eyes. He froze. Catherine looked up at him with the most striking green eyes he had ever seen. But it was not just their color that stopped him. It was the intelligence in them, the kindness, and something else he had not expected at all. Recognition. You, he whispered, too quietly for anyone else to hear. A small, sad smile played at the corners of her mouth. Hello, Alexander. His mind raced back 15 years to a summer internship program his father had forced him to attend. He had been 20, arrogant, determined to prove he did not need his father's name or money. There had been another intern, a quiet girl from a modest background who worked twice as hard as everyone else. Catherine Whitmore. She had been plain back then, or so he had thought in his youthful arrogance. She wore simple clothes, no makeup, and kept her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. While other interns networked at happy hours, Catherine stayed late in the library, studying, learning, preparing. He had been cruel to her once. He remembered it now with burning shame. She had presented an idea in a team meeting, a brilliant strategy for market expansion. He had dismissed it publicly, too caught up in his own ego to recognize genius when he heard it. Later that night, he had found her crying in the stairwell. Instead of apologizing, he had walked past without a word. The next day, she was gone from the program. He never knew why she left and had not thought about her since. Until now. But this woman standing before him was not the same girl. Catherine had transformed. She carried herself with quiet confidence, her natural beauty enhanced rather than hidden. Yet her eyes held that same sharp intelligence, that same determination he had been too blind to see 15 years ago. The officiant cleared his throat. Alexander realized he had been staring for far too long. Around them, whispers began to ripple through the crowd. He leaned down and kissed her, a brief, formal touch of lips that sent an unexpected jolt through him. When he pulled back, he saw a flash of something in her eyes. Pain, perhaps, or resignation. The reception was a blur of congratulations and knowing looks. Alexander played his part perfectly, the attentive groom, while his mind churned with questions. Catherine matched him, gracious and poised, deflecting the more intrusive questions with practiced ease. Finally, as the evening wound down, they found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the ballroom. The guests had begun to leave, the music had softened, and for the first time all day they could speak privately. "Why did you not tell me?" Alexander asked, his voice low. Catherine met his eyes steadily. "Would it have mattered? You made it very clear you wanted no part of this marriage. My identity would not have changed that." "I remember you," he said, "from the internship program. You left suddenly." Something flickered across her face. "Yes, well, some environments are not conducive to learning." The implication stung. "I was cruel to you." "You were young and arrogant," Catherine said simply. "We both were different people then. What happened to you after that summer?" Alexander asked. "The Whitmore family I investigated was described as modest, struggling even." "You are clearly not struggling now." Catherine's smile was bitter. "My Uncle Harold was your father's friend, but he was not my father. When my parents died in a car accident when I was 17, Uncle Harold took me in out of obligation, not love. He saw me as a burden, especially after I left that internship program." She paused, looking out at the glittering ballroom, but he also saw an opportunity. "Your father spoke often about wanting our families to unite. When both our fathers died and the contract surfaced, Uncle Harold realized I was his ticket to the Morrison fortune. He spent the last year training me to be the perfect society wife, all while keeping my identity hidden from you." "Why did you agree?" Alexander demanded. "You could have refused, found another way, could I?" Catherine challenged. "I had no money, no family support, no options. Uncle Harold made it clear that if I did not do this, I would be cut off completely. And besides," her voice softened, "the contract would have bound you to marry a Whitmore regardless. At least this way, it is someone who understands what it means to build something from nothing." Alexander studied her, seeing the strength beneath the elegant exterior. "You have changed. So have you," Catherine observed. "The Alexander Morrison I knew would never have honored a contract that did not benefit him directly. Yet here you are." "I had no choice," he said automatically. "There is always a choice," Catherine replied. "You chose honor over convenience." "That says something." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their new reality settling between them. "What do you want from this marriage?" Alexander asked finally. Catherine considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I want to prove I am more than a bargaining chip. I want the chance to show that I can contribute, that I have value beyond this contract. And perhaps if we are both very lucky, we might find something resembling partnership in this arrangement." "You want to work?" Alexander asked, surprised. "I have a master's degree in business strategy from Columbia," Catherine said quietly. "I completed it in the evenings while Uncle Harold paraded me through etiquette classes during the day. I may have been forced into this marriage, but I refuse to be a decorative wife who lunches and plans charity galas." For the first time that day, Alexander felt something shift inside him. This was not the disaster he had imagined. This was something far more complicated and potentially far more interesting. "I have a proposal," he said slowly. "We honor the contract for the required year. But instead of maintaining separate lives, we approach this as a genuine partnership. You want to contribute? My company could use someone with your strategic mind. Work with me, prove your worth, and at the end of the year, we will decide together whether to continue this marriage or part as friends." Catherine's eyes widened. "You would give me a position in your company?" "Not give," Alexander corrected. "You will earn it. I will expect the same excellence I demand from every employee. But yes, I think you could be an asset." "Why?" Catherine asked. Why change your mind so suddenly? Alexander thought about the cruel young man he had been, dismissing her brilliance out of pride. He thought about the woman standing before him now, who had survived loss and manipulation while still maintaining her integrity and ambition. Because 15 years ago, I was too blind to see your worth, he said honestly. I would rather not make the same mistake twice. Catherine was quiet for a long moment, emotions playing across her face. Then she extended her hand formally. Partners, then. For 1 year. We will see where it leads. Alexander took her hand, feeling the strength in her grip. Partners. As they left the ballroom together, walking into an uncertain future, Alexander realized something surprising. For the first time since learning about the contract, he felt something other than anger. He felt hopeful. The year that followed transformed both of them. Catherine proved herself brilliant in strategy meetings, seeing angles and opportunities that others missed. Alexander found himself seeking her opinion on major decisions, valuing her insight in ways that had nothing to do with their marriage contract. They developed a friendship built on mutual respect and shared ambition. Slowly, carefully, that friendship deepened into something more. On their first anniversary, Alexander found Catherine standing by the window of their home office, looking out at the city lights. He came to stand beside her. The year is up, he said quietly. According to our agreement, we should discuss the future of this marriage. Catherine turned to face him, her green eyes searching his. What do you want, Alexander? He took her hands in his. I want to tear up that contract. I want to choose this marriage freely. Not because of some agreement made by our fathers, but because I choose you, because somewhere in this year I fell in love with my wife. Tears filled Catherine's eyes. I fell in love with you too. Despite everything, despite how this started, I love who you have become, who we have become together. Then marry me again, Alexander said. No contracts, no obligations. Just two people choosing each other. Yes, Catherine whispered. 1,000 times yes. They renewed their vows in a small ceremony with only close friends, no grand ballrooms or hidden veils. This time, when Alexander looked at his bride, he saw everything clearly. Her strength, her intelligence, her beauty both inside and out, and he knew without doubt that sometimes the best things in life come not from careful planning, but from taking a chance on what you cannot see until you are brave enough to lift the veil. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales of love and second chances. Leave a comment sharing your own story of unexpected love or transformation. We would love to hear from you.